Trade deadline's coming up. We are less than 48 hours away. It'll be Tuesday, August 2nd at 5 p.m. Central Time. So last week, we identified a few targets. No moves have been made here on the White Sox front yet. Well, what do you think is going to transpire over the next 2 days here?
It's going to be interesting. I know there was a tweet, I think, from Ken Rosenthal or Jeff Passan, one of the big heavy hitters, over the weekend here, saying that he's been hearing from executives that believe that this is going to be the craziest deadline in recent memory. Now, we have heard things like that several times over the last couple of years, and they haven't always materialized. But I think given the fact that now you do have the additional playoff spot in each league, that certainly should help to drive a little bit more activity amongst teams that view themselves as viable playoff contenders. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with the three teams here in the Central. The Twins have lost today, so the Sox are now 2 games back. You have 3 teams separated by 2 games. Our good old buddy Steven Stone was commenting earlier in the week on Twitter.com that really this is the time when the GMs are going to decide who wins this division, and it's going to be who ultimately can make the savvy moves. I don't necessarily think any of these teams are going to make significant, impactful moves to the likes of Luis Castillo, what we saw with the Mariners do over the weekend here. But if you can just be savvy, do what the Atlanta Braves did a year ago, kind of reshaping some of their roster. Whichever one of these 3 teams does it is ultimately going to put them in the best position to win this division here.
And how fitting now that the Sunday Funday episode is titled Your Turn, Rick Hahn. That's what we need. Tony, what do you think? What's going on here? White Sox trade deadline.
I think Steve summed that up perfectly. I don't think the White Sox are going to go off and do something extravagant, but it's going to be your same kind of deadline you saw last year for them. Go get the bullpen some help. Go get some help on the field as well. And you saw that last year with Craig Kimbrell and Cesar Hernandez. I think you're going to see some additions in here. You saw Liam Hendriks talking about how he was talking with Rick Hahn and the likes of him about, clubhouse fits and all of that other stuff. It'll be really interesting to see how impactful these moves are. One thing that we are used to as Chicago White Sox fans is guys coming here and just absolutely dying. So you don't want to see that happen, but that's going to be in the back of our minds over the next few days is who's coming here and can they continue whatever sort of success or find success once they get themselves into a White Sox uniform. There's been a bunch of names that are being thrown out right now around the league. I don't know who the White Sox end up with. I really have zero predictions or clues into what they're going to do to shore this up because, as Steve said, you've got a couple extra playoff spots here. I think the pool of sellers is a little bit lower than what it normally is this year with some of this bunched upness that you've seen. I mean, you look at the AL Central. If Cleveland didn't have as good of a year, are they going to sell? Are they going to go for it? Like that's
we plucked a piece from them last year, right?
Mm-hmm. So there's not as much available to you, and that's going to drive the price of some of these guys up. I think my main concern is what do you have in the farm system that you can sell that's not going to burn you a couple of years down the road? It makes me very nervous that you're going to wind up with another one of those James Shields trades. Honestly, boys, I'm kind of nervous about that because you look at the grand scheme of things, the big picture here. You're going to have to compete against the Yankees, the Astros. I know it's baseball; anything can happen. But I don't see anything on the table that goes and puts your ball club on paper the same as any of those teams. I'm significantly worried about an overpay for a 1-year rental or a just down the stretch rental this team goes and makes. That said, the team needs to improve just to win this division. So, I mean, I would not want to be Rick Hahn over the next 4 or 5 days. I just absolutely would not. And then we'll see what happens a year from now. But hey, You have to get into the playoffs to have a chance. I know the White Sox are going to want to do that. I know all the fans want them to do that. We're going to have to judge this trade, whatever it is that they do, or no trades. We're going to have to judge that not only right now, but we're also going to be judging that over the offseason and wherever that takes us down the next 4 or 5 years for whoever we have to give up to acquire what we do. This is going to be very impactful, not only for this season, but for the White Sox in seasons to come. The cupboard is not stocked. I don't know if I've ever been this nervous heading into a trade deadline, boys.
Yeah, I think what you just said there, I would not want to be Rick Hahn over the next 48 hours. That statement, I think, rings true. Because as much as we want to sit here and play armchair GM, as that's what we do, it's tough decisions to make. And like you said, for all
I would be sitting on the couch with a one of those recliners with a refrigerator next to it.
The George Costanza special.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd have it fully stocked with Budweiser, and I'd just be sitting there and waiting for the phone to ring and see what happens.
Okay, let's talk a few specific names, because obviously rumors fly all over the place, but there are some reports that have the White Sox linked to a couple players, one of them being Jose Quintana, which Stephen may or may not have written an article about before that news surfaced. And then also Michael Givens was thrown out as a potential fit reliever for the Cubs there. So thoughts on these guys? Is kind of the only real concrete target that we have here. We know David Peralta is already off the board. Some of the big ones we knew we were going to get Castillo there either, but this is what we know. This is what we have to work with right now. Quintana, Givens, any thoughts either way on those guys?
I mean, neither one of them are particularly sexy moves, but however, they would be functional pieces for this team, and they would fill some specific needs. I know that there is a large segment of the fan base that is bitching and moaning about the prospect of Jose Quintana coming back to the corner of 35th and Shields. But at the end of the day, like Tony was talking about there,
a lefty. Rick Hahn said it specifically. Yeah, you need a southpaw.
You do. You need that. And the fact of the matter is they're not going to trade Colson Montgomery. And their ability to get something impactful just isn't there right now. So you have to kind of take what you can get at this juncture and hope that when they get here, that they don't do what so many recent White Sox trade acquisitions have done and just completely crater. So those are two guys that I think make sense, that they are reasonable fits. They're not sexy, but they would be functional upgrades.
I'm not really high on either of those guys. In fact, those are very underwhelming. And the fact that I talked about having to overpay is right there. What does either of those guys cost you is my biggest question, because the Sox have a couple of high-end names, just a couple. There's not a lot. You're talking Oscar Colas, you're talking Colson Montgomery, you're talking about some of those guys. I'm not giving that up for Givens. I'm not giving that up for Jose Quintana. I'm worried if that's the type of trade deadline that we're setting ourselves up for. And I'm not trying to hoard prospects here either. I'm just saying I would rather go out for a big fish there, but that's going to include somebody that's on your major league roster right now in order to go get a big fish. And I know not a lot of people are very high on selling off Andrew Vaughn right now. I know a lot of people aren't high on selling off Jake Berger right now. I know a lot of guys aren't high on selling off a Michael Kopech right now to go make the impactful move. But let's go look at that AAA roster right now, guys. There isn't somebody that's pushing the envelope trying to buy for starting position time at the major league level. And that's what teams like San Diego have, who are going to go out there and hit the top of the market and kind of set whatever the market value price is. I'm extremely concerned that at the fact that the White Sox haven't tried to make a move yet, because as soon as these dominoes start to fall, the prices on some of these guys are going to get a little bit higher. And that's my biggest fear here. Yes, these guys can be functional major leaguers for the White Sox down the stretch, but both of those names feel like I'm coming to the White Sox to crater. That's my first initial reaction is Jose Quintana, Michael Givens. I'm just waiting for them to enter a ball game in the 6th or 7th inning and give up 2 home runs and it be absolutely impactful for this team, and us to sit here drinking misery beers, getting pissed off that those were our trade deadline acquisitions. In fact, you go back last year, I was okay with the price that you gave up for Craig Kimbrell. You don't have that name available to you right now, or that pedigree available to you right now. And you look what happened there. That wasn't a pleasant experience. I want more. Just plain and fucking simple. I want more.
Understandable. All valid points from both of you guys there. I will say that I'll go ahead and say it. I am a fan of bringing back Jose Quintana. For all the reasons Steve listed in his post over at ontapsportsnet.com. I think that's a good way to help preserve Michael Kopech. He has turned it around. I know last year was terrible when he was with the Angels, then I believe he was DFA'd or whatever. Something happened, he had an injury, and then went to the Giants. He's figured it out in Pittsburgh there. It's not, sexy. It's not like Jose Quintana when he was on the White Sox and, trading him at the peak of his value there in 2017.
I don't think I've ever been to a White Sox game, Johnny, where Jose Quintana was on the mound and the White Sox won. Don't think that's ever happened in history.
He never got run. He never got run support. However, he could be in a hybrid role too. You have some versatility with him. You could put him in the bullpen, have him come out of there as a lefty. Obviously, right now it's only Tanner Banks. We're not getting Aaron Bummer back until September at best, right? And then I really like Steve's plan for possibly combining for a start with Michael Kopech, or just straight up taking his day if you want Michael Kopech to have the proper bullets in the tank come late September, early October, which hopefully you're playing in there. So I wouldn't mind that. Other than that, I don't know too much about Givens. Obviously, another lefty you could target there. Andrew Chafin, that's been a name thrown out there. Haven't seen him be shipped yet from Detroit. So be interesting to see. Stay tuned on tapsportsnet.com and here at Sox on Tap. We'll try to get a little trade deadline special in after the moves take place. So